Hello everyone, I'm Mike, and today Ron and I are going to guide you through removing and installing carpet. Whether you're looking to refresh a room or just replace old worn out carpet, we'll provide a clear step-by-step approach to help you complete this project confidently. Now, keep in mind, this is a tough job, and most homeowners choose to have their carpet installed professionally. The Home Depot offers installation services to make the process easier. However, for those of you who want to tackle this project on your own, or at least investigate whether or not you want to do this, this workshop will cover all the steps needed to remove the old carpet and install that new carpet.
Now in this workshop, we're going to cover the entire process from start to finish. First, we're going to go through the steps to remove that old carpet and how to dispose of it properly, as well as show you how to accurately measure a room. And then after that, we're going to explain the steps to install new carpet, as well as how to create a transition seam where two separate pieces of carpet meet. And we're also going to discuss the tools, the materials that you're going to need, and answer some frequently asked questions. By the end of this session, you'll be ready to tackle that project on your own.
Well, with a little bit of help, right? We help each other a lot in this process.
Yes, definitely. At least two persons on this project.
Yep. So to get started, you'll first measure the room to determine exactly how much carpet you'll need to purchase. Start by measuring the length of the longest walls. Measure from one side of the wall to the other and write down each measurement in feet and inches. Adding your measurements to a rough diagram of the room can be helpful. Now, if the room isn't perfectly rectangular, like if you have alcoves or closets, measure each of those sections individually. Measure each block of space in the room, then add those measurements together to get the total length and width. Since our room has a small closet, we decided to calculate the room as if the wall next to the closet didn't even exist. Including that extra footage in our math ensured we would have enough extra carpet to cover the closet and leave us with some extra to keep on hand for future issues like stains that might need to be cut out and replaced.
Now, once you have the basic measurements, add an additional 3 to 6 inches to each side of the room's dimensions. This extra length will ensure you have enough carpet for trimming and tucking under those baseboards, along those walls, and under those doorways. It's also wise to order about 10 to 15% more carpet than the room's actual square footage. This accounts for waste and any unexpected adjustments. Again, we accounted for this extra carpet by the way we measured our room. However, when installing carpet with a pattern, it can be more complicated to line cuts or seams. So in that case, you would want to purchase a little more extra beyond that 10 or 15%.
Now, take your measurements and convert them from feet and inches to yards, because that's how carpet is sold. For example, 10 feet and 6 inches becomes 3.5 yards. Multiply the length and width to find the total square yardage. For example, if the room measures 12 feet by 15 feet, then it is 180 square feet. Divide that by 3, because there are 3 feet in a yard, and you get 90 square yards of carpet. So for this project, we have a room that is just over 14 feet by just under 11 feet, and these measurements include that small closet.
Now again, you're going to want to measure any additional spaces that the carpet will cover, such as closets or alcoves. Now our room has a small closet which measured 37 inches by 23 inches. But again, we incorporated that space into our overall calculations. If you didn't do that, you'd want to add extra measurements to your overall room's total to make sure that you have enough carpet for the entire area. If the room is wider than the carpet roll, which is typically 12 feet, but also available in 15-foot widths, you'll have to plan for a seam somewhere in the room. Determine where the seam will go to minimize visibility and add extra carpet length to accommodate these seams. Now we're going to go over making seams later in this workshop.
After the room is measured, obviously then you're ready to purchase your new carpet. There are many styles of carpet, as you can see right here. There are 4 main categories that we have in our stores. First, there's loop, or sometimes referred to as Berber, which is actually a type of loop carpet. Now it's durable and stain resistant and great for high traffic areas due to its low profile loop design.
You know, Mike, it's cool that you said about being stain resistant, but let's just think about the fiber type itself. The fiber type itself is going to determine how stain resistant it is. That style wears really well. If it's a nylon type carpet, it's going to rock when it comes to being stain resistant. If it's a polyester, for sure. But any other fiber type, you know, your stain resistance is going to be based on what the fiber type is.
Right. And obviously, if you've been in the store and looked at carpet, this is just one sample of Berber and loop carpet. We have lots of others. We actually pulled these out of a store, and they obviously come in a lot of different colors and patterns, but this is just an idea of the variety that you'll find in that loop pattern. Now, next up, we have texture carpet. Texture's soft and plush with a casual look. Texture carpet has fibers that are slightly twisted or looped, creating a surface that can be obscure for footprints and vacuum marks, making it ideal for bedrooms and living spaces.
You know, when it comes to this is probably one of the most weared carpets that's out there today. It's actually one of the easiest to install because then it's not very high fiber type or anything like that. So it makes it simple for to match up because there's no pattern or anything like that.
And same thing, you know, obviously a lot of colors are available. And again, this is just one sample board. There are many for this type of carpet, but just to give you an idea of the variety that's out there. What's up next, Ron?
Now next we've got pattern. This adds some style, unique designs, and is excellent at hiding wear. It makes it a versatile choice for living rooms and dining areas. However, when it comes to this stuff, this is probably going to be one of the do-it-yourself kind of hard ones because you got to match the patterns up. So you have to be very careful the way you're going to cut it and lay it because you want these patterns to line up because if they don't line up, you're going to see it right away.
Right. And you'll kind of see that when we do the install. Our carpet didn't have a pattern, so obviously if there's no pattern, you can cut the carpet and make a seam just about anywhere, and you can't tell because all the carpet looks the same. Like Ron said, there's a pattern here, so you got to match that pattern. It makes it much more complicated to make a cut and make a seam in that carpet.
And then finally, on our list of carpet styles, we have twist. It's a cut pile carpet with twisted fibers. It's durable and resists matting, providing a comfortable, resilient option for family rooms. Now this carpet right here is one of my favorites. Number one, because it's more plush than the other carpets. That's going to be based on face weight, which is the thickness and the density of the carpet, but it's a lot plusher. If this is a great carpet for, say, a baby's room or something like that.
Yeah, and I wish you could feel this because, like Ron said, it's luxurious. It's a lot thicker pile. You just want to lay down on this and take a nap. It feels incredible. But as you can see, again, a lot of different options, and again, just one of the samples of this type of carpet.
Hundreds of different carpet options at Home Depot.
Now, you're also going to want to look at the pile type and the face weight.
Now, carpet pile refers to that density and length of those fibers. The fibers make up the surface of the carpet. Now, common types include cut pile, that's where the yarn tips are cut, loop pile, where the yarn tip remains uncut in the loops, and then cut and loop pile, a combination that creates those patterns. Now, cut pile provides a soft, plush feel, while loop pile is more durable and suited for those high traffic areas. Now, that face weight, wow, that's important. It's the weight of the carpet pile per square yard measured in ounces. It does not include the weight of the carpet backing. Higher face weights indicate better durability and performance. For instance, a carpet with a face weight of 40 to 60 ounces is considered heavy duty and suitable for high traffic areas. In contrast, lower face weight carpets range from 30 to 50 ounces per square yard and are lighter and better suited for rooms with less foot traffic, like for instance, bedrooms or guest rooms. Also, know that short, dense tufts of carpet are more resilient to wear and matting.
And all of that information that we just talked about is always labeled on the back of the carpet. Let me show you real quick.
That's good.
If you're interested, you can just look on the back and there's always a little chart that kind of walks you through all of that information about each of the specific types of carpet. So if you've done some research and you decided you want a certain weight or a certain type of characteristic, you'll find that right on the back of the samples in the store. Very helpful. Now, when choosing carpet, think about how the room will be used and the amount of traffic it will endure. High traffic areas such as hallways, entryways, family rooms, they can benefit from durable carpet types like loop or textured nylon. Rooms with lower traffic like bedrooms or guest rooms can accommodate softer twist carpet types such as cut pile or polyester options. Additionally, consider factors such as direct sunlight exposure and potential moisture in rooms like basements, for instance. For those areas, moisture-resistant fibers like olefin or treated nylon can provide extra durability and longevity.
Now, Mike, let's not forget about our fur babies.
Never.
If you have pets, select a carpet that can withstand those claws, withstand that dirt and potential stains. Stain-resistant nylon carpets are best for pet-friendly homes, but you want to avoid those looped Berbers in areas where pets may frequently walk or run, as claws can catch on those loops, leading to snags and pet injuries. Textured and cut pile carpets work well, as they provide comfort while being durable enough for that pet traffic. In addition, choosing carpets treated with a stain-resistant or opting for darker colors can help hide those stains in pet fur, making maintenance a snap. For extra protection, consider adding a high-quality carpet pad. This can help absorb sound, provide a moisture barrier, protect the carpet from wear and tear, plus it adds comfort for both you and your pets. For example, Home Depot's LifeProof carpet has a built-in lifetime stain protection and great softness and durability. It's the perfect carpet for busy families. Home Depot's Triexta fiber offers the best in stain and odor resistance without adding harsh chemical treatments. The reason is the fiber itself will not absorb moisture, keeping liquids and stains on the surface where they are easily cleaned off. It's a great choice for homes with pets.
So I wanted to reiterate just a couple of things real quick, Ron. You mentioned the loop carpet. You know, if you look closely at a Berber type carpet, it's called a loop because there actually is a loop. The fibers connect, loop up and around and connect again, making like a hook. That's why it's kind of dangerous for your pets, because they can get their claws kind of stuck in those hooks. Whereas a normal carpet fiber is just straight up in the air, they're less likely to get caught in there. The other thing we mentioned was considering a high quality pad. Just want to make sure that everybody understands you have to have a pad. We're not saying consider a pad. You always want carpet padding under your carpet. We were just giving some of the advantages of some of the higher quality pads. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Well, there's also one caveat to that, Mike. If you're putting in an outdoor carpet,
right.
If you have an outdoor carpet, no pads necessary. If it's going to be a glued down carpet, there's no pad necessary.
Okay. So let's start our project by removing the old carpet. Here are the steps. First, we are going to clear out all the furniture and other items to create a clean and open workspace. Make sure to put on a dust mask, knee pads, and gloves. You'll probably be surprised at how much dirt and dust exists under your old carpet. Vacuum the area first to get up as much dust and dirt as possible before beginning the removal. Start at a corner. Pull up that section of the carpet. You may need pliers to kind of grip it and get it started. Work section by section until the carpet is completely removed. Remember, the carpet is held tight in place with tack strips along the walls. Be careful with those, as you can poke your fingers, as I did several times during this process. You want to use a utility knife to cut the carpet into manageable pieces. Make vertical cuts along the seams. You can pull up the carpet along one wall, fold it over onto itself and cut along the fold, or just hold it up and slowly cut down a seam from one wall to the opposite wall. Make sure you have new sharp blades in your utility knife. Cannot stress that enough. You may have to replace those several times during this process, as we did, because they can dull pretty quick when you're doing this. Once all the carpet is removed, next, pull up the carpet padding. We got a little lucky in our project because we found that the old carpet had no staples, no glue, anything holding it in place. Hopefully yours is stapled or glued because it's supposed to be to the floor. So use a pry bar or utility knife to help. Using a heat gun or even a hair dryer, you can heat up the old padding until the glue loosens, and then you can scrape it off with a putty knife. Remove the carpet padding in sections like you did with the carpet. It should be replaced even if it appears to be in good shape. If you have wood subfloors, the padding is probably installed onto the subfloor with hundreds of staples. Some may even be loose when you pull up the pad, but most will remain stuck in the floor. So you'll just want to use pliers to remove those staples. You can also use a specialized tool called a carpet staple remover. Roll up the carpet padding and dispose of it with the rest of the carpet. Now here's a tip. With the carpet padding removed, now is the perfect time to identify and fix any loose or squeaky subfloor panels before the new floor covering is installed. You can also check for any loose floor nails or fasteners and hammer those back into place. Your goal is a clean, debris-free, smooth surface for the new padding. The tack strips are probably old or damaged, so you'll want to carefully use a pry bar and hammer to remove them from the floor's edges. You'll replace those later with new ones as part of the install. Now, another reason to replace those strips is the sharp tacks that are holding the carpet in place. They're designed to face away from the center of the room towards the wall. They can become bent or pull away from the wall when you're pulling up the old carpet. When this happens, they're less likely to secure the new carpet properly. Be sure and wear safety goggles as you pry out the old strips. Sometimes they can splinter and shatter. So, once the carpet, the padding, and the tack strips are removed, thoroughly clean the subfloor to remove dust, debris, and any leftover adhesive, nails, or staples. Use a broom or a shop vac to get up all the dirt and debris. Ensure all of the old fasteners have been removed before you install the new carpet. Now, Ron, real quick, we talked about kind of securing your floor again. If you've ever walked around your house and you hear the floor kind of squeaking, it's just the fact that a nail or a screw has loosened a bit and that floorboard is moving. This, again, of course, is the perfect time to fix that. So think about that as you're walking around the room to remove the carpet. Take note of where those noises are, because you can drive those nails back in or put a screw in to secure it even more securely to make sure that they don't move in the future under the new carpet.
So what's so crazy is it must have been about, 25, 30 years ago, maybe more than that, when I built my first house in Florida, and I had a guy come in and put the carpet in. And then it was my baby's room, by the way. So when I came into the room, I started feeling stuff under the carpet and under the pad. And I was just like curious, so I pulled up the carpet and pad. There were hundreds of drywall nails that were left behind, signifying that the guy just did not clean up the room properly and then put the carpet down.
He didn't watch this workshop.
So now that you've remove that old carpet, it's important to dispose of it properly. You'll need to check with your local waste management for specifics, and you'll need to find out the best acceptable way to dispose of it. Some communities will pick up the waste curbside if it's placed in a large, heavy-duty trash bag. Some recycling centers accept carpet, so look for those local facilities that may repurpose or recycle it. This way, cutting the carpet into manageable strips is super important. The smaller rolled up pieces are easier to remove from the room and dispose of or recycle.
Now it's time to prepare the subfloor for the carpet installation. After you've ensured it's clean, dry, and level, again, you don't want that stuff under that Ron mentioned, you'll first install new tack strips around the room's perimeter, leaving a gap between the strip and the wall. Now the gap you leave depends on the thickness of the new carpet. You want to maintain a space equal to about 2/3 the thickness of the carpet between the walls and the tack strips. Use a scrap piece of carpet as a guide. Now here's a pro tip. You can also cut a strip of wood to match the appropriate gap size and use that as sort of a spacer as you work around the room. That way you don't have to continually measure as you go. First, you want to cut the tack strips. Use a utility knife or oscillating saw to cut the tack strip to the necessary lengths. You can also cut the strips at a 45-degree angle at the corners for a better fit, but that's not required. For our project, we just align them at the corners to fill in that space.
This distance ensures that the carpet can be stretched without damaging the wall. Make sure that the angled tacks on the strips are facing the wall, and the small points sticking out of the strips will grab the carpet, hold it in place. Our strips had writing on them. Laying them correctly meant that we could read what was written on the strips. This helps us keep track as we worked our way around the room.
Real quick, that's really important because you're on your knees and your hands crawling around this room for a long time and you get tired. Depending on the size of the room, depending on the size of the project, if you get in a hurry and you stop keeping track of that, these things are pretty small, you know? It's critical that they face the wall. And there were several times where I threw a strip down and started to nail it in only to realize it was upside down. But that's why those words really help, because as long as you can read that, it makes it easier. You know they're in the right place. I don't know that that's on every tack strip that we sell, but it's probably on most of them. But it really makes a difference. But again, those little tacks, they're sharp. Don't touch them while you're doing this, but make sure they're pointing away from the carpet, away from the room, and towards the wall. Now, you want to nail down the tack strip. Use a hammer or a nail gun to secure the tack strip to the subfloor. Place nails about every 6 to 8 inches along the strip. Some tack strips, like the ones that we're using, include nails to secure them. Just be sure not to damage or bend the tack points as you hammer in those strips. Be cautious of the sharp pins sticking out as you work. You really should wear sturdy work gloves when you're handling these. It's really easy to poke yourself with the sharp tips. Real quick, you'll notice the nails that we talked about, they're already on this tack strip. And they run like every 6 inches. So you just tap those into the ground. It's really easy, or into the floor. Every once in a while, they might be close to one of these little tacks. You might actually, bend one of those as you do that. That's okay because there's tons of these along the strips. Just try to avoid that if you can. But also, if you have an extra long piece and you want some extra security, or you find that there's a long piece where there isn't a nail, that's where you can come back and just drive in a screw on your own just to add for some stability.
We found that it was really beneficial for us to maybe tack it down with the nail gun on either end and then work our way through nailing down the other small nails.
The other thing to keep in mind, they're not always perfectly straight. This is a really thin piece of wood, and in shipping, or maybe moisture gets to them at some point, a couple of ours had a little slight curve. It was hard to even notice that until you had it on the floor aligned to the wall. You might start thinking you're aligned, and then you get to the end and you're 3 inches away from the wall. But these are bendable, so you can make adjustments to the strip as you're attaching it to the floor.
It's crazy that you said that, because you got to check the alignment, like you said before, making sure that the strips are straight and aligned properly. Again, your spacer board will help with this. Just adjust as needed before securing them completely.
For corners, cut the strips to fit and nail them down securely. Your final check. Once all the strips are installed, double check that they are secure and that the pins are facing the correct direction. If you find that they're not, it's really easy just to pry these back up. You just did that when you removed the old ones. You can do that to these because you get a box of these and there's tons of them in there. You probably won't use all of them. So if you find that you made a mistake and got in a hurry, put it in backwards, you can take that out and just put in a new one.
Now, quick recap here. Maybe we covered it and I didn't get it, but why do we leave that gap from the wall again?
Well, the gap between the tack strip and the wall is necessary to allow the carpet to be properly stretched, laid over the tack strip, attached to those tacks, and then tucked under the baseboards along the edges during the installation. By leaving that small space, the carpet can be stretched over the tack strips without being compressed or bunched up against the wall, which helps prevent wrinkles and damage in the future.
Right. The gap also helps you use tools like that knee kicker or that power stretcher to stretch the carpet tightly across the room. This helps the carpet remain tight over time, minimizing the risks of wrinkles or ripples forming as it settles. One more thing to be aware of. You should not put tack strips in across doorways. Instead, you should use a threshold bar in a doorway or do a seam like the one we're going to be doing in the closet doorway. The sharp points of the tack strips can poke through the carpet, cause injury, so you'll only want to do this along the room's exterior next to the wall.
Now real quick, just to give you a visual, again, these little tacks that we're talking about are facing the wall, right? When the carpet is laid on it and stretched, carpet has a lot of give to it. You may not realize that, but you'll notice when you're stretching it and using the knee kicker, you're stretching the carpet beyond these tacks. As it retracts back a bit, that's when it gets caught and sticks on these tacks, which is what keeps it in place. But then you've got that extra that you tuck up under the baseboard. So that's kind of that whole process.
So what's next?
What's next? Now that we have installed the tack strips along the wall, it's time to install the carpet padding. You want to roll out the new padding, cut it to fit, and secure it with either adhesive or staples.
One of the most important pieces of the whole pad install is cutting that pad. When you have a pad with a moisture barrier, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a little harder to cut through without a pad that doesn't have a moisture barrier. So this is where you're going to want to have a brand new blade on your utility knife. And once you cut through that pad and you're ready to move on to the carpet, change that blade or flip it over, because I'm telling you, if you don't and you're trying to cut through the pad or the carpet, it's going to catch. You're not going to have a clean cut, and you are going to be dissatisfied with the way the pad is laid.
And you're going to wear yourself out. And you'll notice, if you're wondering how will I know when to change the blade, trust me, you'll know, because it's not super easy, but it's not hard to cut through that carpet. It slices through pretty well, but it doesn't take very long for it to get dull and not be cutting very well. So you'll know when it's time to change one out. Both adhesive and staples can be used to secure carpet padding in place, and the best option depends on your needs and the project. Adhesive is a good option for permanently fastening carpet padding to any approved flooring surface. Staples are a less expensive option that can be easy to lay and remove if you have any mistakes along the way. Staples are less damaging to carpet than nails, and their dual prong action gives them extra grip. Now, we used glue for the majority of our padding, and then we added staples along the edges and on our seams for just a little bit more security. Make sure that when you're stapling that you compress the padding as you staple to ensure the staples make good contact with the subfloor. Butt any seams together without overlapping and tape them together with seam tape. Staple the pad at the seams, alternating the staples so they aren't next to each other. Next, carry the carpet into the room. Now, your carpet roll will be large, it'll be long, it'll be very heavy. Getting some extra hands can help in maneuvering the roll through the house and into the room. Also, the back side of the carpet is very, very rough. You're likely to run into walls and drag it along walls as you're moving it around the corners. Just know that you may have to do some paint touch-ups after your project is complete. Then, unroll the carpet over the padding, making sure it covers the entire room with excess around the edges.
Now, when measuring, remember to account for the extra carpet you'll want along the walls. When you roll out the carpet, you want it to be larger than the room. Just extend it up onto the walls and straighten it the best you can. You'll be cutting off a lot of the excess carpet. It's also important to alter the direction of the carpet being laid. If your padding is going east to west, you want that carpet to go north to south. This ensures you won't have carpet seams on top of padding seams, which can create a weak seam leading to separation. Use that knee kicker or power stretcher to stretch the carpet over the pad, pressing it into the tack strips around the perimeter. Trim the edges of the carpet with a utility knife, leaving enough extra to tuck up in under the baseboards. Using that tufting tool to tuck the carpet, leaving a clean edge where the carpet meets those baseboards. For any seams, use seam tape and a roller to secure them. If needed, place transition strips where the carpet meets other types of flooring for a seamless finish. Now the main bedroom is complete and it's time to install the carpet in the closet.
A couple of quick tips. You'll see in the video when you're using that tufting tool, sometimes it's hard to get the carpet, especially if it's really thick, to get it to bend and fold and get up under the baseboard. You might want to use a hammer. We found that that was much easier to kind of tack that under there. The other thing, if you're putting in a carpet that does not have a pattern like we did, you know, we talked about you've got this giant piece of carpet, you're trying to walk on it, you're trying to position it in the room. It's a little bit tough, but it doesn't have to be straight because there's no pattern. You won't know if it's a little bit off as long as the extra along the walls is somewhat consistent around the room. That will be different if you're doing a pattern carpet. If you've got an obvious kind of a square pattern on your carpet, it's got to be really straight or you're going to notice that. So if you have a pattern carpet, you want to take a little extra time and work and make sure that you've got that perpendicular to the walls, because you're not going to want to have that even a little bit off. You're going to notice that when it's done. We didn't have that issue, but you will if you have pattern carpet.
And the last thing is this. Do yourself a favor and don't cut off too much carpet at one time. We're not pros, right? So cut off a little bit and trim it out and just keep trimming it out. You don't want to cut off too much too fast because you don't want it to be short because you're never going to get it back. Right. You can walk those cuts back. It'll be a whole lot easier for you in the long run. Take a little bit more time, but you're going to be happy with the result.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you know, depending on the size of the room, our room was like 12 feet and we got 15-foot carpet. So we had a lot of extra on the side. If you've got an extra wide room and maybe you've ordered carpet that only comes in 12 foot and it barely fits or barely meets the wall, that's not enough. You're going to want to do a seam somewhere in that room to ensure that you've got that extra carpet. So you've got to plan for that when you not only measure the room and go to buy your carpet, but when you find the carpet that you want and decide how it's sold, how wide it comes. Not all carpet comes in 15-foot lengths. Most is only 12. You're going to have to figure that out to ensure that you've got that extra carpet. You've got to have that to do those cuts and do those tucks on the sides.
Now, what's up with the closet?
What's up with the closet? It's just sitting there. It's not doing much. But now for the closet, you want to follow the same steps as above for all of the rest of the room. The tack strips are needed in the closet as well, but we installed those already when we were working on the rest of the room. Using the measurements from the closet, we cut a piece of carpet for that area, making sure that there is enough carpet, again, to overlap where the seam will be, where it meets the room carpet. The seam is where the new closet carpet meets that carpet that we put just now in the bedroom. You're going to want to align the carpet pile direction, making sure the direction of the pattern of both pieces runs in the same direction to avoid a visible seam line and any kind of color discrepancy. Place a straight edge along the overlap area. Then carefully trim both edges of the carpet pieces with the utility knife to create a clean, straight line. For the best results, cut from the back side of the carpet. You can double cut, cutting both pieces at the same time to ensure a precise fit. Alternatively, cut each piece one at a time, ensuring the cuts are even. Most often, you would make your seam connection before installing the second piece of carpet. It makes sense for us since our closet is so small. Slide a strip of carpet seam tape under the seam area so that it's centered between where the two carpet pieces will meet. Make sure that the tape extends a bit beyond each end of the seam to ensure full coverage. Position the carpet pieces over the tape, pressing them together so that their edges align tightly.
Now next, you're going to heat the carpet seam iron to the appropriate temperature. Then slide it along the seam tape underneath the carpet pieces. Slowly move the iron along the seam, heating the tape as you go. Avoid leaving the iron in one spot for too long to prevent overheating. After heating the section of tape, immediately press the carpet edges down into the hot adhesive. Using a carpet seam roller, press the carpet pieces firmly together, blending the carpet fibers so the seam is less visible. This ensures both carpet pieces are securely bonded to the tape. This also helps blend the fibers for a more seamless appearance.
Let the adhesive cool completely, which should take a few minutes. Avoid walking on the seam area during that time to ensure a strong bond. Once the seam has set, inspect it for any stray fibers or uneven edges. Use scissors to trim away excess, helping the seam blend smoothly. Then you can carefully use the knee kicker to get the closet carpet into place and secure on the tack strips. Now, in our closet, what we decided to do, because it was so small and the piece of carpet was really small, it just made sense for us to go ahead and tuck the edges and then do the seam. In a larger closet, that may not make sense. You may want to do the seam first to ensure that that's secure and lines up properly, and then you can deal with the excess carpet and put that into the corners and tuck it and do the rest of the process. We just kind of flipped that. It just made sense in that small closet, but that generally probably won't be the case.
Well, at the end of the day, you're not walking in that little tiny little opened up closet, so there was no real need to have it real stretched. Yeah. So tucking it first, bringing it out, trimming it to fit for the seam made the most sense.
Right. And just like we talked about on the edges, you know, this seam has got to be perfect. Really, the two pieces of carpet have to be cut the same because they're going to line up, and the whole idea is that you don't see the seam. You don't know that the seam's even there. If there's any kind of difference in the cuts on the two pieces, it's going to be obvious. You can't really fix that. So, like we said on the sides, cut it extra wide. Make sure you have a little extra. Trim it back a little bit at a time until you get it pretty close. And the other thing about the seam, You know, that seam tape, grab that seam tape real quick, Ron. The iron that you're using for this is super, super hot. So you've got to be really careful with this thing. It comes with a little holder that you can place it in. But if that's not handy when you're working, you can't just set this thing down in the middle of working. You want to do your seam and then take it back and put it on its holder. But this carpet glue, this glue that's on this tape, the iron is actually, as you see in the video, right on top of it. And it starts to melt and get gooey really, really quick. So you sit there for a second and you wonder, is anything happening? And then all of a sudden you can tell that it's getting gooey. And that's when you start sliding it down. But you don't want to stay on this very long, like Ron mentioned, because you're going to burn it, or it's just going to become a mess. You just need to get it wet enough to adhere to the carpet. But it's a really quick process. Just know that that carpet iron is very, very hot, and you don't want to sit it on the carpet in the middle of it. Make sure that that holder is close by, so as soon as you're done with it, you can put it away and get it out of the way. So with all of those steps out of the way, there you have it, a freshly installed new carpet.
Now, Mike, here's a quick list of tools that we used in the project. We used those pliers. We used a utility knife, and we had plenty of extra blades. We grabbed that pry bar. We used that stapler and that staple gun. We had a measuring tape. We had seam tape and a seam roller. We had our own safety gear. We had gloves and knee pads, eye protection, and a dust mask. We used a floor scraper. We had a carpet seam iron and a tufting tool to get that carpet under the baseboard. We had a hammer to help us along the way, and then we had a knee kicker and a power stretcher. Let's talk a little bit about that, Mike.
Yep. Now that knee kicker, you saw us using that throughout the process. What that does is it digs into the carpet and allows you to stretch it up and over the tack strips like we talked about. That's important throughout the process. At the end of the process, that power stretcher comes into play. Talk a little about that.
Now the power stretcher is exactly what it says. You have one end at one side of the room and the other end braced against the baseboard on the other side. This allows you to get some leverage on your carpet so that you can really get a good stretch. Now, take some time whenever you get one of those things or you rent one, because you're going to want to learn how to put it together, because it might take a few minutes because it's got a lot of intricate parts to it. But getting back to the knee kicker for a quick second, you're going to see on the back of the knee kicker some teeth that are going to grab into the carpet. Now, it has an adjustable wheel on the actual kicker itself that allows the teeth to come out further and further based on how thick your carpet is. Now, I started out at a lower setting and I noticed that it wasn't grabbing properly, so I cranked up the setting a few notches so it gave me a good grab on the carpet, so when I kneed into the kicker, you'll see it actually move the carpet closer to the wall, and that allowed me to trim off more and then tuck it or tuft it under those baseboards.
Yep. And why is the power stretcher important? If you've ever gone into a room that has older carpet and there's a ripple in the carpet, there's some give in the middle of the carpet, it's probably a case where it wasn't stretched properly. Because like we said, carpet has a lot of give to it. It's not so obvious when it's new because it's still stiff. But if it's in a room with a lot of foot traffic, over time it's going to stretch and loosen up. And if you've not stretched it good at the beginning, that's when you can get those little bubbles to form in the carpet. So it's really important to make sure that you've stretched it both with the knee kicker and the stretcher throughout the process. One other point, the staple gun that we use for the padding. Depending on the thickness and the sturdiness of your padding, you've got to really press that stapler down to make sure that the staples make good contact with the subfloor. When I first started using it, I pressed a little bit and I thought it was working because the staple did make contact, but barely. I noticed that it wasn't really in there very well. So I had to push a little harder and make sure that I was forcing it down as far as I could to make sure that it made really good contact with the subfloor. Really important, because those can work loose over time if they're not in as far as they need to be.
Making sure that you can press the pad to the subfloor so that the staple makes contact with the subfloor.
Yep.
Now, for the materials that we use for the project, we used that new carpet, of course. We had carpet padding. We had tack strips, we had carpet seam tape and padding seam tape and floor adhesive.
Let's answer some common questions about carpet removal and installation. Ron, how long should I wait before moving my furniture back into the room after the installation?
Oh, Mike, it's best to wait at least 24 hours to give the adhesive in those seams a chance to fully set before placing any heavy items on your carpet. I got a question for you. Do I really need carpet padding?
Something tells me you know the answer to this question, Ron, but yes, you do need padding. First of all, it provides cushioning. Obviously, it's padding. It's a layer of cushioning for comfort under the carpet, but it also helps extend the carpet's life by reducing wear and tear. Most people don't realize the carpet does move a bit and it wears from the bottom up. You're walking on the top, you're assuming the top's getting worn, and it is to a degree, but the bottom is probably moving more than you think. If it's just against the subfloor, it's going to wear out really quick, but that padding is going to help extend the life of the carpet.
Hence the reason why we actually glued the carpet pad down, because now there is no friction between the pad and the carpet.
Right. Now, Ron, can they do this project themselves or should they hire a professional?
Well, when it comes right down to it, it's really up to you. It depends on your level of experience and confidence with executing the project. With the right tools and some patience, you'll be equipped with the proper steps to make this thing happen.
Right. So we don't want to mislead anybody. You know, this is a tough job and there's a lot of things that you need to do. It's not overly complex as far as the steps, but they have to be done correctly. Now, can a DIYer do this? Absolutely. Should every DIYer do this? Maybe not. You know, as you watch this video, you see, you can decide for yourself, like Ron said, if this is enough for you or something you should take on. You know, oftentimes Home Depot includes installation in a carpet sale. So for a lot of people, they don't even need to address this. But for DIYers who are active and they want to take on new projects and they have a lot of experience, this is something they can do. But just know going in, this is a tough project that a lot of DIYers are probably going to want to shy away from.
Now that brings me to larger spaces or intricate installations where hiring a professional may be a good idea. You can always go to homedepot.com/services for more information about our installation services.
So Ron, anything else? I think we've covered everything. Anything else we should reiterate or mention?
Well, we covered that room, that's for sure, and carpet.
So today we did cover the essential steps for removing and installing carpet. We walked through the steps to remove old carpet, discussed proper disposal methods, and then explained how to install the new carpet. We covered the tools and materials you'll need, as well as answered some common questions to help you along your way.
Thanks for taking an opportunity to join us today. We hope you feel prepared to remove and install carpet on your own. If you have any questions or need any further guidance, don't hesitate to reach out to us at workshopslive@homedepot.com. On behalf of myself, the entire Home Depot How To Workshops team, thanks for joining us for the workshops. And as always, thank you for shopping at the Home Depot. We look forward to seeing you in our next workshop.